All right, welcome back for another one. Today we have another fantastic guest. We have Zach Townsend, who is the CEO of Meanwhile. We had Jason on a little while back, and he gave you guys the skinny on how the product works and what they're cooking up over there. But I thought it'd be really good to go and get it from the main man himself. So love to have you. Excited to have you here, Zach.
Great. Really happy to be here.
Absolutely. So for the people that may not know what Meanwhile is, I'm sure that there'll be some people that did catch the first podcast with Jason. Can you give them kind of a high level and then maybe your background and like what gave you the idea?
Sure. Yeah. So, Meanwhile is a life insurance company for the crypto economy, specifically starting with Bitcoin. So, life insurance probably sounds somewhat boring, maybe not very interesting, but it's a fundamental financial service, and life insurance companies do life insurance, they do annuities, they do retirement savings, they do all sorts of different things. And in the United States, life insurance has a pretty privileged tax position. So as folks, get wealthier, they have more complex financial needs. They are doing tax and estate planning. Often, life insurance comes up, and we wanted to create a life insurance company native to the crypto economy, both because we think that's a great way to attack the life insurance business, which is like percent of global GDP, and we just think that the world is going to increasingly go toward crypto, toward digital assets, toward these durable sources of value, and we are building a company that's like growing into that. So that's Meanwhile.
Love that. Yeah, I think that you guys are on the bleeding edge of what this is going to look like over the long term. Um, but I'm sure that you've had to deal with like regulations and
Yes.
will partner with you. So, where did this kind of start? I mean, did you have a need? Like, did you have a bunch of Bitcoin that you thought, I want to structure this in a way for my kids? Or like, what's the backstory?
Yeah. I did have a bunch of Bitcoin and was sort of thinking about it. I mean, my backstory very briefly is, I moved out to Silicon Valley, San Francisco in 2013, um, basically because I wanted to work on financial technology. And my background is uh, grew up very working class. My dad was a postman. I tested into a fancy high school that then, launched me to an Ivy League school. But I really, that entire experience, particularly going to college, I was like, wow, there are rich people in the world. And like, wasn't a rich person. Like, how do you build wealth and how do you think about that? Um, all the way down to like financial inclusion and things like that. So that's what I decided I wanted to work on. And I really was just on Hacker News, which is like Y Combinator's forum, and was like, what's the best fintech company I'm hearing about? And that was Stripe. So I moved out to San Francisco in 2013, and I was employee like 37, 38 at Stripe.
Wow.
Um, and I got really interested in building infrastructure. So in the like worst financial decision of my life, but maybe the best like life decision, I applied to Y Combinator. I got into YC. I left Stripe, and I built a company in the sort of like financial infrastructure space. We sort of invented like what now they call like banking as a service, bank account as a service. And we were just way too early, but like ran that company for 2 or 3 years, sold it to Silicon Valley Bank, which was a going concern in 2015. Just to be clear, no signs of distress. Um, and I actually received my first Bitcoin then because one of the other offers we had to buy Standard Treasury was from Coinbase because they were really struggling with like financial infrastructure. So here's another opportunity where I could have a few $100 million, and I went a different way. But so I received my first Bitcoin from Brian, like in a meeting. So this is not uncommon for this era, but like Brian was just like sending people $200, $300 worth of Bitcoin on Coinbase so that you would open an account. So that's like my original stash is there. Um, And I'll sort of fast forward, I do a bunch of other stuff. I, work in another fintech unicorn. Um, I worked for the state government of California for a year, et cetera, et cetera. But like along the way, I was sort of just dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, missed the whole ICO boom. And eventually I come to like late 2021. And to your like question, I actually sat down and said, I'm really comfortable with regulatory bullshit. Like that's like a comparative advantage I have against all my crypto, you know, Bitcoin friends, um, like I come from I sort of more trad fintech, I guess. I don't know. That's not a term, but so I literally was at a whiteboard and I'm like, okay, this is an economy. Like that is my mental model for crypto. It's a weird economy, right? It's global, it's decentralized. There are elements of or optionality around self sovereignty. That's really cool, but like, it's an economy, and you could think of it as like crypto land with its economic system. And there are certain financial institutions that every economy has, and I made a list. So it's like, okay, there are banks and there are asset managers and there are payments companies and there are trust companies and there are exchanges. And I actually looked at that list at the time in 2021 and it was like, a lot of these things, they already exist. And basically a week later, I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd been thinking about life insurance like separately for years. Um, I woke up in the middle of the night, like 2 in the morning. I was living in Austin at the time. And I was like, oh my God, there should be a crypto life insurance company. And I went to my office, because it's like, during COVID, and I wrote the entire memo that is like what we raised our seed round on. And we're now 4 years later. And basically, we've done what we said we were going to do. I sort of understood that we wanted to be a life insurance company. I understood that, if you're going to save for 3, 4, 5 decades, we think saving in Bitcoin makes a lot of sense. And we understood that we were going to start by selling to people who were really concerned about the tax benefits, and then we were going to expand internationally. And the reasons that people buy the product internationally are a little different, right? So it tends to be less about tax benefits in the U.S. and tends to be more about political risk or jurisdictional risk or currency or inflation risk, right? And then like we hope to systematically move down market over time. Like my ultimate dream is, you're a middle class person in Argentina. You right now, you do not save for your retirement. You do not buy a life insurance policy because the Argentinian peso is going to die before you do. And so that's the ultimate dream, is anyone in the world can save, can protect their family for, the extremely long term in these global decentralized stores of value.
That's incredible. Yeah, well, I love the light bulb moment. Like, I don't know if I operate the same way you do. Like, I write all these things down and I look for opportunities and I'll rack my brain. And then either when I'm meditating or I'm like completely asleep, you wake up and you're like,
Yeah. No, it's just like, flash of genius or whatever.
yeah, it's an epiphany.
Really like shoot out of bed. I think that's right. I think the best innovations um are often just at the intersection of a lot of your own thinking, of the world's thinking.
Mhm.
And I think you process that stuff subconsciously. I don't know if you can like reason your way to um some special insight that's across boundaries.
Yeah, I think divine download or whatever you want to call it. There's been a lot of things that have happened where people have completely revolutionized an industry, and it's a completely new technology. It's disruptive, and what I think you guys are doing is that, right? Like you're saving in an asset that's hard. Gold's not going to have the same type of appreciation or rate of appreciation. It also doesn't have a lot of the same potential benefits that Bitcoin does. Um, So, I mean, they mine more of it. Bitcoin's finite. So all of those things kind of lead to a really good financial product that you guys have created, and you've done it in a very unique way. So I mean, you had to do this offshore. Like the U.S. government's not going to let you do an insurance policy not in dollars, right?
We're working on it. Well, actually, what's weird, I guess, is to really get to the nitty gritty of insurance is insurance is regulated state by state. It's very unusual, actually. The federal Congress passed a law in the late 1940s that basically says we will not regulate insurance and it'll be left to the states. Um, and they're naturally very conservative, even I guess like small c conservative. So even states you might expect like Texas or Florida or Wyoming that might want to do something in crypto, it's sort of a hard road. So yeah, we went offshore. But having said that, like Bermuda, many of your listeners probably aren't aware, but it's not in the Caribbean. It's like 1,000 miles east of North Carolina, truly in the middle of nowhere. And it's barren rock, and they've like had to create an economy. And the economy they've created is like being the offshore insurance capital of the world, right? And you walk around and there's no poverty. It's not like an island nation you might think of. There's just these huge building, Chubb, Munich Re, Swiss Re. So this is a very well respected like center of insurance activity. But I think we're quite fortunate that although they are really respected and they have this really interesting, they sort of have respectability and equivalence in the United States, and they have respectability and equivalence in Europe, and they're just a little bit more permissive. That's like their shtick. They want to be just a little bit more permissive, so you want to be there, but like not so permissive that they like get hit with a sanction or something like. So that's like the role they play. So if you want to do really wild stuff, you can go to Cayman or BVI. Bermuda is like trying to be, I guess, the closest to offshore, but like have a big enough difference. And but they also do a lot of stuff in crypto, right? So Coinbase's offshore operations are there, Circle's offshore operations are there, uh, Block's offshore operations are there. Um, FTX's operations were not there; they were in the Bahamas because they're too good a regulator. So we understood pretty early that it was a great place to be, and it also is just we're starting to sell to people, in Hong Kong and Singapore, or through Hong Kong, through Singapore, through Dubai, through Switzerland, and they all know and respect Bermuda. Um, we're working on some legislative work in states in the U.S., so maybe we can get to come here. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but let me just say one more thing, which is, um, but the whole thing works for U.S. people for two reasons. One is there's a Supreme Court decision from the 1890s, which just is so long ago, but it's actually about life insurance. Now, how people can buy life insurance from whomever they want. So you have like this, I don't know, God-given constitutional right to buy life insurance. We don't have the right to sell it actively. So you won't see billboards. We don't run like Twitter ads or